Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation. A number of years ago, my then 16-year-old son walked into the kitchen one sunny afternoon and said, "Dad, those reverse mortgages you do for people, that's really cool that you help the old people, and it's really a neat situation that you've made a difference in their life, but the kids really get ripped off, don't they?" I was kind of shocked because I kind of thought that my son really was impressed with the work that I was doing for folks and didn't realize how it wasn't something that hurt his generation. But he had a concern, and I wanted to make sure that I addressed it. So, you know the attention span of a 16-year-old. I had him sit down at the kitchen table, pulled out a $100 bill from my wallet, and I also had this other $100 bill for the equity. I said, "Isaac, let's talk about this a little bit." And I explained the three buckets to him, which I found is the easiest way to understand and explain how reverse mortgages work with a retirement plan. Because you see, everybody has three buckets. The first bucket they have is, of course, their income. The money that comes in every month, every 2 weeks, whatever the situation is with payroll, with Social Security, whatever the situation is, depending upon your stage of life. During the time that you are working, before you retire, you're taking money from bucket one, putting it into your income, and then dumping at least 5 to maybe as much as 20% into bucket two, which is the money that is taking care of your retirement. Then you're also taking money, which a lot of people don't realize, regular $100 bills, and putting it over sometimes 20, 30, 40% of your income into your home, making mortgage payments, taxes, insurance, maintenance, upkeep on the home, additions, remodel, dumping in all kinds of money over here into bucket three. So Isaac, that's what we've been doing, is taking a lot of money and putting it into this house. So you have a nice place to live, and so it's a roof over your head. But there's something interesting that happens when we put the money over into bucket three. It turns into equity. It's no longer accessible. We no longer have cash. That cash has turned into equity. So now we have less cash, even though when we go into bucket two with our investment advisor, all of that money actually is a benefit and a help that we can immediately get a hold of that money if we need it. But all of the money that we put into bucket three is locked up in the form of equity. And we can't get it out, and we can't touch it. Now, Isaac, we get to retirement, and you and your three brothers are now in a situation where you're all off on your own, and we don't have to worry about taking care of you guys anymore, but now we're in retirement, and our income goes down because we're not pulling as much out of bucket number one anymore because we're not working as much as we did when we were in our 40s and our 50s and our 60s. When that happens, the bottom rectangle that you see here on the graphic is the money that we have to live in retirement. So I drew that on the legal pad, showing him that day in the kitchen table, that now we have to pull most of our money from bucket two and bucket three because we're not going to be able to live probably on just the Social Security alone. So Isaac, what do? Do we immediately start taking money out of bucket two and depleting that asset right away? Or should we start turning some of our equity? Remember, we took cash and we turned it into equity. Now a reverse mortgage is nothing more than taking this equity and turning it back into cash. That's all it really is. It seems kind of mystical and like we're really losing something, but in order to live, we have to take money from either bucket two or bucket three if we don't have enough anymore in bucket one. It's not money that is being created or destroyed. It's money, that's all we have. We have our nest egg in bucket two, and we have our house in bucket three. So Isaac, what you need to realize that the older we get, the less money that we're going to have to pass on to you because we're going to be spending bucket two and we're going to be spending bucket three. But according to all of the research, it doesn't really matter because the money that we're pulling out of bucket three leaves more in bucket two. And quite frankly, you as the next generation are going to be better off, not worse off, because while you will definitely have less equity, because we're going to be spending that right away as soon as we turn 62, we're not going to make any more mortgage payments and convert any more cash to equity as soon as Mom and I turn 62. But that means that there is going to be more money in bucket two, not only for us to enjoy while we're alive, but quite frankly, also to be able to have more to pass on as a legacy to you as the next generation with your brothers. So after we kind of went over this, I asked Isaac, which bucket is most valuable to you? Would you rather have bucket 2 or bucket 3? Well, you know what a 16-year-old or really an 86-year-old would say, well, I'll take bucket 2. That's really more interesting, and I really enjoy that more because I can use that right away. And quite frankly, that's a very simple lesson of retirement. Equity does us no good in retirement. We can't do anything with it. It's something that can be given to the next generation, but it is worthless to us while we're living in the house. We can't touch it. We can't use it. We can't rip off the screen door and buy groceries with it. The only thing we can do with it is let it sit there and pass it on. So the fact is that cash is much better in retirement than equity because it's something that we can use today, tomorrow, next week, next month, whenever we need ready cash. But the equity can only be used when we sell our house or when we mortgage it. And when we mortgage it, usually that creates a payment, except in the case of a reverse mortgage. And when we have a reverse mortgage, we have no payments, and yet we can still use that equity. So the good thing is as I'm using that equity, I have no payments, except of course the taxes and insurance that we would need to pay if we had the house completely paid off and it was free and clear. So when we finished the conversation on that sunny spring afternoon, Isaac had a completely different perspective of how the reverse mortgage was going to work, and not only for us, but for the hundreds and thousands of other families that we have helped with reverse mortgages throughout the years. It is so important to be aware that as we go into retirement, the rules change a little bit, and we have to use something to maintain our standard of living, and the cost of living does not get cheaper most of the time. Usually it gets a little bit more expensive. And so proper strategic uses of bucket 1, bucket 2, and bucket 3 from a tax planning strategy, from a cash flow strategy, from an estate planning strategy, and all of the factors that go into it, retirement is different. And if we properly use these 3 buckets, it will make all the difference in the world. In fact, we'll change the way retirement is done in this country. It's so important to make sure that the assets that you have are properly used and used at the right time when they should be used. So as we make plans for my family, we'd also like to have a reverse mortgage planner make plans for your family and take a look at what would be different if a reverse mortgage was introduced into your planning at 62 or as soon as possible into your retirement plan of where you're at, so that we can change your retirement for the better.